Hey guys, tonight we're doing something a little different. We're not just traveling back in time, we're going to live it. You're waking up not in your soft bed with clean sheets and blackout curtains, but in a damp wooden shack, your straw mattress crawling with fleas, and your stomach already grumbling. The fire went out hours ago, and the chill has settled deep into your bones. Outside it's still dark, but the village rooster is crowing like your life depends on it. Because it does. Your first job is to haul water from a filthy stream using a bucket with a cracked handle all before sunrise. And no, there's no coffee. Just the sound of your bare feet on the frozen dirt. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you all tune in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're awake now, but it doesn't feel like waking. There's no snooze button, no gentle alarm tone easing you into consciousness. There's just the freezing air against your face and the weight of the coarse wool blanket tangled around your legs. You shiver. Not because the room is cold. It's not even a room. It's a single space you share with your family, your chickens, and the family pig, which is currently snoring beside the hearth. The hearth that's gone out. Again. Your eyes adjust slowly. There's no electricity, of course. Just a tiny sliver of moonlight slipping in through the slats in the wooden wall. You hear your father coughing. Your mother mutters something about kindling. A child stirs next to you, maybe your younger sibling, maybe your own child if you're older. Everyone's bundled close, for warmth, for comfort, for survival. Your stomach cramps, not the rumble of hunger you get after skipping lunch. Real hunger, the kind that feels like it's twisting your insides. Last night's meal was watery pottage barley, and whatever root vegetables you could dig up before the frost. You scraped the bottom of the pot clean, but it wasn't enough. It never is. You roll to your side and push yourself up. The air stings your skin. You fumble for your boots, leather cracked with one toe poking through, and pull them on over rough wool socks that haven't been dry in days. You add a cloak. It smells like smoke and damp earth. You step outside. The ground crunches beneath your feet. A hard frost covers the packed dirt path that runs between your croft and the neighbors. Thin wisps of smoke curl from a few other rooftops. You're not the first one up. You never are. You make your way to the stream, a wooden bucket banging against your hip. Your fingers go numb, gripping the handle. You don't speak. There's no one to talk to. The stream is slow this morning. A layer of ice has begun to form around the edges. You use a stick to break it. The water is dark and smells faintly of manure. You don't think about what's upstream. You fill the bucket anyway. You don't have a choice. The walk back feels longer with the weight of the water. Your shoulders ache. Your hands burn with cold. You slip once, nearly twisting your ankle, but you catch yourself on a fence post. No time to feel sorry. You trudge on. Inside, your mother has coaxed a flame back to life. The fire is small, barely more than a flicker, but it's something. She adds twigs. You pour water into the pot hanging over the hearth and add a pinch of oats. That's breakfast. If you're lucky, there might be a sliver of onion or dried garlic left. You stir with a wooden spoon that's been mended 3 times. You eat in silence. Everyone eats in silence. There's nothing to say. The day hasn't started yet. When the sun finally peeks over the hills, you're already outside, headed to the fields. You're a villain, a peasant tied to the Lord's land. You work his fields 3 days a week, sometimes more. Today is one of those days. You don't own the land, but you're expected to make it grow. Barley, rye, maybe beans if the soil isn't exhausted. You walk past the church. The bell hasn't rung yet. The priest sleeps late. He's not hungry. He doesn't hoe fields. You reach the Lord's domain. The soil is frozen near the top, then soft and sticky underneath. You and the other laborers break the earth with wooden spades. Your hands blister even through the gloves. The wind picks up. Dirt gets in your mouth, your eyes, your ears. You spit, but the taste lingers. Time doesn't pass here. It crawls. You pause only once, crouching behind a stack of hay to relieve yourself. There's no privacy. There's no shame. Everyone's too busy staying alive to care. At midday, you're allowed a break. You sit on a stone near the edge of the field and chew on a piece of bread so hard it feels like wood. It tastes like ash. There's no butter, no jam, just dry grain and spit. Then back to work. By the time the sun sets, your legs tremble from the effort of standing. Your back feels like it's splitting. You've dug, hauled, threshed, gathered. The reeve tells you to return tomorrow. You nod. You don't answer. You just turn toward home boots heavy with mud. Your wife or mother or sister has added dried nettles to the evening pot. It helps. You think of meat. You don't remember what it tastes like. There was a time years ago when a neighbor slaughtered a pig. You had a slice of fat and a bit of bone. It was glorious. You've dreamed of it ever since. You sleep early. Not because you're tired, though you are, but because there's nothing else to do. No lights, no books, no soft mattress or clean sheets. Just straw. Just blankets that don't quite cover your feet. Just the sounds of a dozen breaths in the same room, and the occasional snort from the pig in the corner. You close your eyes, and you hope the fire doesn't go out again before dawn. Let's keep going. The fire held through the night barely. When you stir, a thin glow still pulses beneath the ashes. You roll over stiff as old rope and feel every bit of yesterday's work echo through your bones. Your hands are swollen, your back ached in your sleep, and there's a knot behind your shoulder blade that's become part of you now. You shift onto your elbow, listening. It's quiet. Not silent, there's no such thing in medieval life, but quiet in that heavy, watchful way the early hours always are. You hear the crackle of embers, the soft shifting of bodies, and then somewhere outside the call of a crow. Another villager is already up. That means you're behind. Again. You sit upright, swinging your legs over the edge of the bedding. The straw pokes your ankles. Someone's wet the corner of the blanket, probably the youngest. You don't blame them. The nights are cold, and the fear of venturing outside in darkness is very real. You slip on your boots, still damp from the frost that crept in yesterday. They make a squishing sound as you stand. Outside, the air is glass. There's a layer of white clinging to everything trees fences the sloped roof of the smithy down the road. Your breath fogs instantly curling into the air, like smoke from a snuffed candle. The sun hasn't yet risen, but the sky is beginning to pale. You tighten your cloak, pull your hood up, and head toward the shed. You need tools today. You'll be mending fences after your time in the fields. The wind last week cracked one of the outer posts, and a few of the rails came loose. If you don't fix them, the pigs will get out again. And if they get out, they'll trample the Lord's grain. And if they trample the grain, you don't finish that thought. Back inside, your wife is feeding the fire and soaking oats. She hands you a bowl without a word. It's thin, barely more than hot water, with a few grains floating in it. You thank her anyway. You eat it with a wooden spoon and try not to think about how empty your stomach still feels after the last bite. The children stir slowly. One of them coughs. Not the kind of cough that passes. A deep one. Wet and sharp. Your wife hears it too. You exchange a glance. She nods once and rises, moving toward the shelf where she keeps the dried herbs. There's not much left, some chamomile, a bit of horehound. She steeps it in water and tells the child to drink. It's bitter. The child whimpers but drinks it anyway. They're old enough to know better than to waste anything. You leave before the sun finishes rising. The fields are stiff with frost. Every step crunches underfoot. You pass other villages on the way, and women bent against the wind, scarves covering their faces, shoulders hunched beneath threadbare cloaks. No one speaks. They just nod. The work is, as you expect, hard, repetitive, cold. You harvest what's left of the cabbage patch, pulling the heads from the half-frozen ground. You bruise your palms on the frozen stalks, slice your thumb on a broken leaf. The pain is brief but sharp. You suck the blood away, wrap it in a strip of cloth, and keep going. The reeve appears mid-morning, walking along the rows with his ever-present staff. He watches but says nothing. You keep your eyes down, your hands moving. Behind you, someone sneezes. No one offers a blessing. At midday, the sun hangs low in the sky. You break for a few minutes, sitting beneath a bare-branched tree. Your breath fogs. Your back groans. You pull out a crust of bread from your pouch. It's gone dry and hard. You dip it in a bit of ale and chew slowly. You don't taste it. Your teeth ache from the cold. Then back to work. After the cabbages are done, you move to the fence. The outer wall that holds the livestock is sagging. You and Osric, your neighbor, carry new rails up from the shed, struggling to balance them between the two of you. He says nothing, just grunts when you shift too fast. You use what nails you can find, but most of the fence is lashed with cord and bent stakes. It holds for now. You pause afterward, leaning against the post. The sun is nearly gone. The sky has turned gold near the horizon, violet at the edges. You've worked through the light again. By the time you return home, your limbs feel like they're filled with lead. Inside the croft is dim but warm. Your wife has made a thicker stew tonight, lentils, onion, and a bit of pork fat saved from the last butchering. The smell alone makes your mouth water. You eat slowly, savoring each spoonful. One of the children claps softly when they find a chunk of meat. It's no bigger than a fingernail, but it's cause for joy. After supper, you repair one of the stools. The leg's been wobbling. You use a bit of twine and a wedge of wood to brace it. Your hands are clumsy with cold, but you manage. The fire pops behind you, casting shadows across the wall. The children curl together on the straw. Your wife hums a song from her childhood, low, rhythmic, and sad. The same one her mother sang. You lie beside her, wrapping your arm around her waist. Her skin is cold against yours. You don't speak. You just hold each other in the dark. Your last thought before sleep is of the wind. You hear it outside, rustling the thatch, trying to slip through the cracks in the wall. You wonder if the fence will hold. You wonder if the child's cough will worsen. You wonder if tomorrow will bring snow. You close your eyes. And somewhere beyond the horizon, another day in medieval life is already waiting. Let's keep going. You wake before the light comes, but not by choice. You're shivering. The blanket slipped during the night, and the fire has faded to a whisper of warmth beneath gray ash. You curl your toes instinctively, but the straw beneath you is cold and brittle. Your breath fogs the air in front of you. For a moment, you lie still, staring up into the rafters, watching frost form in thin veins across the beams. Then you hear the sound of someone vomiting. It's one of the children. You're on your feet before you know it, moving toward the sound. Your wife is already there, holding the child's shoulders as they heave into a wooden bucket. You can't tell if it's last night's lentils or this morning's nothing. It doesn't matter. The child is pale, their eyes glassy. Your wife rubs their back gently, her expression calm but tight. You know that look. It's the one she wears when she's holding back fear. There's no physician, no medicine, no certainty. Only warm broth, quiet prayers, and the hope that the fever breaks before the worst comes. You step outside to fetch water. The world is a frozen breath held in time. The frost is heavier this morning, crunching loudly underfoot. The stream is almost completely frozen now, a glassy surface with narrow veins of dark water running beneath. You use the blunt end of your axe to break through your fingers, trembling. You fill the bucket slowly, watching your reflection in the dark water waver and disappear. Back at the croft, your wife has wrapped the child in 2 cloaks and laid them by the fire. The others huddle close. No one speaks above a whisper. You spoon water into the sick child's mouth and press your lips to their forehead. Burning. You stay close, but there's work to be done. There's always work. The fields won't wait for health, nor will the livestock. You leave the house reluctantly, carrying your tools, your eyes lingering on the door even after it shuts behind you. The manor fields lie stiff and lifeless under the cold. A thin mist clings to the ground, swirling around your ankles as you walk. Osric greets you with a grunt. His eyes are red. He didn't sleep either. His youngest died last winter fever like this. He doesn't speak of it, but he doesn't need to. You both carry the same weight now. The day's work is simple but grueling. Clearing brush, hauling stones from a collapsed fence, and spreading compost in frozen soil. The stench is powerful, but the cold numbs your nose. You scrape frozen dung into piles, then shovel it onto a sled you pull behind you. Your hands blister even through the gloves. Midway through the morning, the reeve passes by on horseback. His cloak is heavy wool, fur-trimmed clean. His horse's hooves crunch through the frost as he surveys the laborers. He says nothing, doesn't stop, just rides on. You hate him a little, but not with passion, with exhaustion. Lunch is a crust of bread and a scrap of salted radish eaten standing. Your back leaned against a barn wall. Your fingers are too cold to feel the food. You chew and swallow like it's a chore. Then back to it. By the time the sun sinks toward the horizon, your limbs feel like they've been carved from stone. You haul your tools home in silence. Even the birds are quiet today. The first thing you do is open the door. Inside, the fire burns brighter now. Your wife has coaxed it higher to warm the croft. The child is asleep, skin still flushed but breathing easier. The others watch from the corners, eyes wide and waiting. You breathe out. Not relief, just less fear than before. You help prepare dinner: mashed beans, turnip peelings, and broth thinned until it barely clings to the spoon. The sick child doesn't eat, but drinks a few sips of water. It's enough for now. After supper, you sit near the fire. Your wife darns a sock, her fingers moving by habit more than intention. One of the children curls in your lap. You stroke their hair and tell them about the time the priest lost his hat to a goat and had to chase it through the village green. They laugh quietly, like it's a forbidden joy. You smile. Joy is a rebellion here, a resistance to the cold and the hunger and the looming unknown. Before bed, you check the firewood pile. It's low again. You'll need to gather more tomorrow, even if it means skipping your own patch of land. The fence still needs mending, too, and the door latch is loose and the pig is limping. It never ends. You lie down holding the sick child between you and your wife, sharing your body heat. The blankets feel thinner tonight. The cold sinks deeper. You pull the edges higher, tucking them beneath your chin. The wind howls outside. The shutters rattle. But for now, the child sleeps. And that is enough. Let's keep going. The wind is still howling when you wake. It hasn't stopped not once all through the night. It lashes the croft like a living thing, rattling the shutters and seeping through every crack in the wood. The thatch above groans under its invisible weight. You lie there for a while, eyes open in the dark, listening to it scrape across the roof like fingernails on old bone. You wonder for a brief moment if it might simply carry the entire house away. The child beside you is breathing, slow, steady, with a faint rasp. The fever hasn't broken, but it hasn't worsened. That, in this life, is a victory. You slip out of bed, carefully trying not to disturb them. The fire is nearly out again. A few orange embers cling to life in the ash. You blow on them gently, add a few slivers of bark, then larger pieces of kindling. Your hands shake from the cold. When the flames catch the light, flickers across the walls, making the entire croft seem to exhale. Your wife wakes next. No words are spoken. She checks the sick child, places a hand on their forehead, then nods once. That's enough. Breakfast is the last of the turnip broth thinned with water. It smells earthy and sharp. You spoon it out evenly, counting each ladle. No one complains. No one ever does. There's nothing else to compare it to. Today you need to gather firewood. You put on your thickest cloak, still damp at the hem, and wrap cloth around your hands. The axe is already dull, the handle splintered, but it will do. It has to. You grab a sack and a rope and step outside. The wind slams into you the moment the door opens. It steals your breath. You lower your head, brace your shoulders, and press forward. The trees at the edge of the village sway like drunk men, their branches cracking with every gust. You make your way toward the woods. Not deep, never deep. The forest is full of stories, and not all of them are tales. Some speak of wolves, others of men, deserters, thieves, or worse. But the truth is simpler. If you vanish into the trees, no one comes looking. You stay near the edge where the brambles grow and the branches are dry. You work in silence, chopping small limbs, pulling down dead branches, stacking them across your shoulders like a yoke. The cold numbs your fingers despite the cloth. Your knuckles split. Blood stains the bark, but you keep going. When the sack is full, you bind it with rope, lift it onto your back, and trudge home through the wind. Inside the croft, your wife has boiled water. She adds a few dried leaves to it, nettle and mint, and pours you a cup. You hold it in both hands, not for the taste, but for the warmth. You sip slowly, letting the heat sink into your chest. The child is still fevered, but sleeping. The others huddle near the fire, carving small figures from wood scraps. One of them offers you a shape. It might be a dog or a sheep, or just a lump with legs. You smile and tell them it's perfect. They beam. After resting, you begin patching the door latch. It sticks in the cold, and the wind threatens to tear it open entirely. You use a bit of leather, 2 iron nails, and a scrap of wood to create a new hinge. It creaks, but it holds. Good enough. Later you check on the neighbor, the old woman who lives 2 houses down. Her door is ajar, swaying in the wind. You knock once, then enter. She's alive, barely bundled under a pile of old furs. You stoke her fire, add some of your own kindling to her hearth. She murmurs a blessing. Her hands tremble. You leave a bit of bread behind. She'll stretch it. She always does. On the way back, you see the priest walking along the road, his cloak whipping behind him. He stops at each home saying a prayer or offering a scrap of dried fish. You nod as you pass. He looks exhausted. You imagine he's buried more people this year than he's baptized. You reach the croft just as the light begins to fade. Your wife has made a stew, if it can be called that, of barley and wild onion. It smells sharp, almost sweet. You sit beside the fire and eat together, the warmth filling your mouth, if not your stomach. After supper, you sit with the children, whittling another toy, checking the hem on a torn sleeve and sharpening the dull axe with a bit of stone. The rhythm of these tasks soothes something in you. Your wife hums again. Not a song this time, just a low, slow melody, like the wind, but softer. The sick child wakes briefly. Their eyes flutter open. They look at you. You smile and they blink once before falling back asleep. Night deepens. You add more wood to the fire. Just enough. You have to ration. Every log is a day of warmth or a night without frostbite. You lie down. The wind still howls, but inside there is quiet, and for now that is all you need. Let's keep going. When you wake, the wind is finally gone, just like that. The silence it leaves behind feels almost louder than the storm itself. No creaking rafters, no groaning shutters, no frozen air forcing its way through every crack. Just stillness. The frost is heavier this morning. It coats the inside of the window in delicate white patterns, like tiny feathers or spider webs. You reach out and touch one. It melts instantly beneath your fingertip. The cold hasn't left. It's deeper now, more settled, like it has claimed the village for its own. Your body is slow to rise. Muscles protest. Your spine feels like someone pressed it between two millstones overnight. You groan, softly roll to one side and push yourself up with numb hands. The straw beneath you rustles, and for a moment you wonder how much longer it will hold together before it needs replacing. The fire is low but alive. You stir it, add kindling, and wait as the orange glow grows. The warmth is modest but welcome. You kneel beside it, hands outstretched, letting the heat crawl up your fingers and into your wrists. The sick child still sleeps. The fever has lessened. Their breathing is calmer, their skin cooler. You touch their forehead gently, afraid to hope. Your wife watches you from across the room, her eyes heavy with the kind of tiredness that's not about sleep. This morning you're heading to the mill. The Lord's grain stores need grinding, and the Reeve has assigned you to help. You're not paid for this. It's owed. Everything is owed. You eat a crust of bread, hard stale, but enough to keep your stomach quiet. Then you pull on your boots, wrap your cloak tighter, and step into the pale morning. The mill lies at the edge of the village just beyond the stream. The water wheel turns slowly today, sluggish from the cold. The path is slick with ice and you walk carefully, each step chosen, each breath slow. The world smells like wet bark and old stone. Inside the mill, the sound is deafening. The grinding stones turn, fed by grain poured into the hopper above. Dust floats through the air like snow settling into your hair, your mouth, your clothes. Your job is simple: lift sacks of grain, pour them in, sweep up the spilled chaff, and repeat. The sacks are heavy. The rope burns your hands. Your back aches almost instantly, but you keep going. You always do. The miller says little. He nods at your work, then goes back to tending the machinery. He's been doing this since before you were born. You once heard he lost 3 fingers to the millstone in a bad winter. He never speaks of it. At midday, he hands you a cup of warm ale and a strip of dried fish. It's the most anyone has given you in weeks. You thank him with a quiet nod, then eat beside the window, looking out at the snow-covered path that winds back toward your croft. You think of your wife, the sick child, the others, whether the fire held while you were away, whether there's enough broth left for tonight, whether that last bundle of firewood will last another 2 days. The thoughts sit heavy in your chest. By afternoon, your hands are raw, your eyes stinging from dust. The reeve stops by, briefly inspects your work, then leaves without comment. You keep sweeping. When the sun begins to lower, the miller says you're done. You step outside into a sky washed in gold. The air is still and bitter. You wrap your scarf tighter and begin the walk home. The village is quiet tonight. Smoke rises from the chimneys in long, thin trails. A dog barks once, then falls silent. You nod to a neighbor stacking wood near his door. He doesn't look up. At home, the fire has been kept alive. Your wife meets you with a cup of hot water, steeped with a pinch of dried thyme. The sick child is sitting up now, pale but smiling faintly. You kneel beside them, brushing their hair back, heart caught somewhere between joy and relief. Dinner is warm, barley stew with a few shreds of dried meat. The taste is sharp, salty, comforting. The children eat quietly, eyes bright in the firelight. Afterward, you sit together by the hearth, your wife sewing the children carving toys from wood. You sharpen your knife, tend to your boots, oil the axe handle. Each motion is part of a rhythm you've known your whole life. Not fast, not exciting, but steady. And steady is what keeps you alive. The fire crackles. The shutters hold. You lie down, pulling the blanket high, pressing close to the warm bodies around you. You feel the weight of fatigue pressing into your bones, but it's gentle tonight. You close your eyes, the sound of the millstone still grinding in your ears. And somewhere in your dreams, the wheel keeps turning. Let's keep going. You wake with a strange sensation, stillness. No hammering wind, no distant coughing, no rush to rise before the sun. Just the slow, quiet rhythm of breath all around you, your wife's, the children's, even the pig's steady snore from the far corner. For a brief, precious moment, you stay under the blanket, letting your eyes adjust to the soft glow of morning seeping through the slats in the wall. Your body aches, of course, your back feels like it's been twisted in the night. Your knees scream when you move them, but it's a familiar pain. Predictable. In its own way, almost reassuring. You sit up slowly. The fire is still smoldering. Your wife must have woken before you fed it and gone to check the traps. She's always the first to move on days like this, quiet as smoke, never needing to be asked. One of the children stirs and climbs into your lap, half asleep, their hair a tangled mess. You wrap your arms around them, pulling the blanket up over both of you. Their skin is warm. Their breath smells like stale milk and hay. You don't stay there long. Warmth, after all, is not permanent. When you step outside, the air is clearer than it's been in weeks. Crisp and dry with a hint of wood smoke and snow. There's no wind, no fog, just a pale blue sky above and frozen earth beneath. The world feels frozen in place, like it's paused just long enough to take a breath before winter presses down harder. Today is Maintenance Day. That's what you've named it in your mind, though no one in the village ever says it out loud. It's not a holiday, just the kind of day where for once you're not being pulled to the Lord's fields or the mill or the church's bell tower. It's the kind of day you use to patch the holes that have grown wide while your attention was elsewhere. You start with the roof. Again. Always the roof. You drag the ladder around the side of the croft and climb slowly, each rung slick with frost. At the top, you squat on the uneven thatch, pulling back layers of straw, checking for rot. There's a patch where rain must have pooled during the last storm. You cut it out and lay new straw, tying it down with twine you twisted yourself 2 nights ago. It's not beautiful work, but it'll hold. Until spring, you hope. Back on the ground, your wife returns with a smile and a small bundle wrapped in cloth. 2 field mice caught in the traps near the hedge. She doesn't say a word, just sets them near the fire and starts preparing the pot. You nod. Mice are meat. Barely, but they're something. The children help gather sticks for kindling. You send the older ones to the edge of the forest, where fallen limbs gather, like discarded bones. They've learned which ones to choose, dry, clean, light enough to carry. They return proud and flushed arms full of firewood. You spend the rest of the morning checking the pig's pen. The latch is rusted. You replace it with a carved peg, jamming it through a drilled hole and testing it with a few sharp tugs. The pig watches you with dull, indifferent eyes. She knows you, knows your scent, your routines. She doesn't bother grunting anymore, just waits. In the early afternoon, you take a walk down the lane to trade. The neighbor 2 houses down has eggs. You have a spool of coarse thread and a wedge of dried salt fish from last year's harvest. The trade is quiet, respectful. No haggling. You've lived beside each other too long for that. You walk back slowly, passing other crofts, each one radiating smoke from the chimney. Each one quiet, low to the ground, surrounded by fences patched with string and scraps. In the distance, you hear a woman singing something soft, old. The kind of tune that doesn't really mean anything, but still manages to carry sadness in its bones. At home, your wife has boiled the mice into a broth, bones and all. It smells faintly gamey but rich. She adds onions, wild herbs, and a splash of milk to soften it. The result is a stew that tastes better than it has any right to. Everyone eats in silence, the children dipping hard bread into the pot, sopping up every last bit. After dinner, your youngest brings you a shoe split at the side. You sit by the fire and begin to repair it, pushing a bone needle through the stiff leather with steady hands. The sole is almost worn through. You'll have to patch that next week, if you have leather left. The room is warm now. The fire's strong, and the walls hold the heat. For once, you don't feel the cold crawling in. You lean back, head against the wall, and close your eyes. Your wife hums again. A different tune this time. Slower. She's stitching something, her fingers flying over the fabric. The children sit beside her, tracing patterns in the soot on the hearthstone. You feel still, not comfortable, not safe, not full, but still. And that in this world is everything. Later, you add 2 logs to the fire, more than you should, but tonight you allow yourself the luxury. You know what the morning will bring. The same aches, the same rationing, the same endless questions about how long everything will last. But for now, the fire crackles. Your family sleeps. And you sit beside them, the quiet king of a kingdom made of mud, straw, and breath. You close your eyes. Let's keep going. The croft is completely dark when you wake. Not the half-darkness of dawn or the fading glow of a dying fire, but true, thick darkness, the kind that disorients, that swallows outlines, that makes even the familiar shapes of your own home feel alien. You blink a few times, trying to adjust, but the darkness doesn't lift. No glow from embers, no flicker from the hearth. Just cold. The fire has gone out. You sit up slowly, careful not to wake the others. The blankets are stiff with frost near the edges. The air bites at your nose, your cheeks. It feels like someone has opened the sky and let all the cold in at once. You grope your way toward the hearth. Your hands find the stone, then the ashes. Cold. No glow. No warmth. Only the faint outline of last night's charred wood. You crouch and begin your work. You know what to do. You've done it so many times you could build a fire blind. You do. A spark catches. A tiny flicker like a heartbeat. You blow gently. Then again. And again. The flame grows just enough to light your face. You see your breath swirl in front of you. Slowly, the fire pushes back the darkness. It begins to feel like a home again, not a cave. Your wife stirs. She pulls the youngest closer and wraps the blanket over their head. The others remain still, but their eyes begin to open. No one speaks. Not yet. You rise, stretch slowly. Every joint complains. You roll your shoulders, rub your neck. Your stomach growls. You ignore it. Today is baking day. It's not much barley flatbread, nothing more. But it's important. It's food that lasts, that fills, that gives structure to the hollow parts of the day. You and your wife begin by grinding the remaining grain by hand. You use the quern stone, 2 heavy slabs, one atop the other with a wooden handle wedged into a hole. You pour the barley in a handful at a time and rotate the top stone slowly, painfully. It takes forever. Your arms ache after the first 5 minutes, but you keep going. You have to. The flour comes out uneven, coarse, speckled with grit. You sift what you can with a cloth, then mix it with a little water and salt. Your wife kneads the dough while you stoke the fire and prepare the pan. There's no oven, no luxury of consistent heat, just the flat stone warmed by flame and your best guesses. The children gather around the hearth, watching. The sick child sits up again today, legs tucked beneath them, face still pale but curious. You hand them a tiny bit of raw dough. They chew it thoughtfully, then smile. You smile back. When the bread is ready, it's flat, chewy, dark at the edges. You cut it carefully into strips, handing a piece to each child, then taking your own last. It's warm. That's enough. Later in the morning, you walk to the center of the village. The church bell is ringing not for mass, but for news. That's what bells are here. Messages in sound. The reeve stands in front of the church, reading from a parchment. His voice carries across the green a new levy. A portion of each household's barley is to be taken to the granary for the good of the manor. He says it with the kind of tone that suggests fairness. You know better. Everyone does. You walk home slowly, fingers curled into fists in your sleeves. That afternoon, you take inventory. You go over every sack, every jar, every pinch of herb, every grain of salt. You estimate what can be spared, what must be hidden. You split your barley in two, one portion for the reeve, one for your own family. You hide a third small pile in a sack beneath the straw mattress, just in case. After that, you help your eldest child mend their tunic. The sleeves have torn near the shoulder, and their knees poke through the trousers. You patch the holes with scraps of old cloth, whispering a half-joke about growing too fast. They laugh, then say they'll stop growing if it helps. You tell them to grow anyway. To grow despite it all. Evening falls quietly. The wind doesn't howl tonight. It murmurs a soft voice slipping through the trees and the cracks in the wall. The fire burns steady. The smell of barley still hangs in the air. Supper is a repeat of breakfast. Bread dipped in water with a pinch of mint. The children eat quickly, you eat slowly. You think of the levee, of the dwindling flour, of the sick child's pale cheeks. Afterward, you sit beside the hearth knife in hand, working on a new handle for the spoon that snapped last week. You carve it slowly, shaping the wood, smoothing the edges. Your wife weaves strips of rush into a small mat. The children lie beside her, curled like kittens' eyes, flickering with sleep. You finish the spoon, place it beside the others. One more thing that works. One more thing whole. The fire crackles. Your bones ache. You lie down once more, wrapping the blanket tight across your shoulders. Your wife breathes evenly beside you. One of the children turns in their sleep, murmuring a dream. And just before you drift off, you think you made it through another day. You wouldn't last a day in medieval times. You already have. Let's keep going. You wake to the sound of footsteps outside. Not hurried, not panicked. Just deliberate boots crunching frost, someone passing by your croft before the sun is fully up. You rise slowly, not startled, just cautious. There's no knock, no shout. But in the village movement, that early usually means something. You dress in silence. The fire is down to coals again. You add 2 twigs, a few curls of bark, and breathe gently until the orange glow grows into flame. The light flickers across the wall, catching the bundles of dried herbs, the patched cloak hung by the door, the half-mended basket in the corner. Your wife is awake now too. She nods to you without speaking. There's no need. Her eyes say it, go find out what's happening. You step into the cold. The frost crunches under your boots as you walk up the path. Others are stirring too. Osric is feeding his chickens. A girl from 2 doors down carries water in a bucket, her braids swinging behind her. Everyone's pretending it's just a regular morning. But the air feels different. There's tension tucked behind every nod. You follow the path toward the church where the reeve is standing, arms crossed, flanked by 2 guards. His breath comes in white puffs as he speaks, voice clipped. A family on the far end of the village has lost their oldest son, fever, gone in the night. The words hit harder than they should. You didn't know the boy well, just passed him a few times, but still it feels close, closer than before. You think of your own sick child, of the heat in their cheeks, the rasp in their breath. You grip your hands into fists inside your sleeves. You walk back home more slowly. Inside the croft, the warmth from the fire is spreading. The sick child is awake now, sitting up. Their lips are dry, but their eyes are clearer. Your wife offers them water in a clay cup. They drink it all, then fall back against the straw mattress. Still exhausted, but breathing. You exhale. Not relief, but something like it. Today is a preservation day. That's what you call it quietly. A day to stretch the little you have into more. A day to prepare for what might come next. You start with the meat, what's left of it. A small hunk of salted pork, just enough to flavor a few pots of stew. You cut it into paper-thin slices and hang it above the hearth, away from smoke, but close enough to dry slowly. Then you and your wife go through the dried vegetables, split peas, onions, garlic bulbs, dried mushrooms collected in autumn. You grind some into powder for soup. Store the rest in waxed cloth. You check the flour. The sack is half empty. You decide to make broth from bones today. You bring down a sack of chicken bones saved from weeks past, brittle and white. They go into the pot with water, a few chopped onions, some stale bread crust. The smell that rises isn't rich, but it's comforting. Warmth pretending to be food. The children help quietly. One stirs the pot, another feeds the fire. The youngest holds your hand while you carve strips of cloth into bandages just in case. Midday passes quietly. You sharpen your knife, mend a broken hinge on the stool, and help your wife pluck thistles from the dry patch of garden soil near the door. She's trying to coax something from it even now. Cabbage, maybe, or wild spinach. You don't expect anything to grow this deep into winter, but the act matters. Later, Osric stops by with the news of a burial. The boy's funeral is tomorrow just after dawn. No feast, of course. Just a hole, a blessing, and cold earth. You nod and offer a strip of dried apple. He accepts it, chews slowly, then leaves. You spend the afternoon reinforcing the shutter hinges. The wind is bound to return soon, and the last storm almost tore one clean off. You use a bit of rawhide to secure the wooden pegs. Your hands bleed from a splinter. You rinse it in the water bucket. You don't flinch. As the sun sets, your wife begins to hum again. The tune drifts through the room like smoke settling over everything. The flickering firelight, the sound of the soup bubbling gently, the quiet rustle of children drawing in the ash. You serve dinner in small wooden bowls. Everyone eats slowly. The sick child manages a few bites. That's more than yesterday. Afterward, you sit beside your wife, her shoulder pressed to yours, watching the fire die down. The croft is warm for now. You've done what you can. Hidden your barley. Repaired the roof. Kept the fire alive. You sharpen your knife again. Not for protection. For cooking. For cutting twine. For shaving wood to patch holes in the floor. The tools of survival are never flashy. When it's time to sleep, you lie down last. You pull the blanket high and press close to the others. The air is cold, but your breath warms your corner of the croft. Outside, the sky is clear, and in the stillness for the first time in weeks, you can see the stars. You stare up through the cracks in the roof and count them. Let's keep going. The church bell tolls once low and solemn as you open your eyes. The sound settles across the village like a shroud, soft but final. Today is the burial. You don't speak as you rise. No one does. There's a quiet around grief that doesn't need to be taught. Even the children seem to feel it stirring under the blankets, but not playing, not laughing. The sick child is asleep still. Their breathing is steady, shallow, but not alarming. Your wife places a hand over their forehead and nods. No words, just a look that means, you go, I'll stay. You pull on your cloak, your boots, and the wool cap that doesn't quite cover your ears. The cold settles around your shoulders like a mantle. It's colder than yesterday. A gray mist crawls over the ground, wrapping the houses and trees in silence. As you walk up the path, you see others emerging from their homes, all moving in the same direction. Faces pale, clothes plain, eyes down. The only sound is the gentle shuffle of boots in the frost. No one brings tools. No one brings baskets. Just themselves. At the church, the priest stands ready, book in hand. The boy's family, what's left of them, gathers near the grave. A shallow rectangle in the hard earth rimmed with loose clods of frozen soil. The boy's body lies wrapped in a coarse shroud, hands folded, face covered. You stand with Osric and a few others, heads bowed. The priest speaks in Latin at first, then in plain words. He says the boy was strong, obedient, that he served his father well, that the Lord gives and takes, and that we must bear both with equal grace. No one nods, no one cries. Grief here is quieter than in books. It's a worn-out thing, threadbare and familiar. Two men lower the body. You help shovel the first few scoops of soil. The sound is heavier than you expect. Each thud against the shroud is like a drumbeat. Afterward, people linger for a few moments. Then they drift away one by one. No procession, no songs, just the slow turning back toward work, toward homes, toward the next thing that needs doing. You return home with dirt still under your fingernails. Your wife meets you at the door with a weak smile. The sick child is awake, sitting up. They've eaten a bit, held down water. You let out a long breath. Again, not relief, but something like it. The rest of the day unfolds in a quiet rhythm. You gather kindling with the children. You refill the water bucket, taking care not to slip on the slick stones near the stream. You stop to speak briefly with the old widow, who gives you a pinch of dried thyme in exchange for help mending her fence next week. Back at the croft, your wife prepares a soup with barley and turnip peel. She adds the thyme and stirs, slowly humming beneath her breath. The tune is the same she sang last week, the same she always sings when she's hoping for something she won't speak aloud. In the afternoon, you sharpen your tools, your hoe, your small hand axe, your carving knife. Each stroke of the whetstone is measured patient. It's not for combat. It's for continuity. Dull blades waste time. Sharp blades save lives. The children help repair a frayed rope used to tie down the thatch. You show them how to twist the fibers, how to knot them tightly. The youngest asks if it'll keep the stars out. You say no, but it'll keep the rain out. They say that's good enough. When the sun begins to dip, you carry a small bundle of wood to the neighbor with the collapsed roof. He's older, can't lift much now. You leave it without a word, just a nod. He nods back. At supper, you all sit near the fire and share what little you have. The soup is thin but hot. The sick child takes a few spoonfuls, then falls asleep in your wife's lap. You watch the fire for a long time after the meal. You don't say much. No one does. The children draw in the ash with sticks. Your wife sews a patch onto her only scarf. You wipe down your tools and store them near the door. You wonder not for the first time what it would take for this life to change. Not just for you, for everyone. For the boy in the grave. For the child with the fever. For the woman with no roof. You wonder if anyone anywhere is asking the same questions and finding answers. But you know the truth, wondering doesn't feed a family. So you rise, bank the fire, and lay down in the straw. You press your hands to your chest to keep them warm. The children settle beside you, limbs tangled. Your wife exhales her breath soft against your neck. And outside, the village falls into silence once more. The earth is harder now. The nights are longer. But you are still here. Let's keep going. You wake slowly this time. Not from cold or sound or hunger, but from something softer. The light. For the first time in what feels like days, maybe weeks, the morning sun is streaming in gently through the gaps in the wall. A pale, honest light, yellowed slightly with the chill but still warm enough to notice. It falls across your wife's cheek where she sleeps beside you, and catches the hair of one of the children who has wrapped themselves like a cat around your legs. For a moment, it almost feels like spring. It's not, of course. The frost hasn't gone anywhere. The cold still clings to your breath, still wraps around the croft like a second roof. But the air is different. There's clarity to it. Less weight, less silence. You rise without sound, brushing the straw from your sleeves as you step toward the hearth. The fire has burned down again, but the coals are strong this morning. One touch of dry kindling, a careful breath, and the flames flicker back to life, stretching, like they too are waking. Your wife stirs, rubbing her eyes. She smiles, faintly eyes following the sunlight that creeps along the floorboards. "We should air the blankets," she whispers. You nod. Today will be a cleaning day. Not a rest day, there are no such things, but a shift. The kind of day you use to tend to the things inside rather than out. Not because there's less to do in the village or the fields, but because sometimes your soul needs the hearth swept, the blankets beaten, the corners checked for mice. Sometimes survival means pausing, just long enough to look around and remember that you still have a home to keep. You begin with the floor. You sweep with a bundle of reeds tied together with rough twine, brushing the dirt and soot toward the door. The children help, using their hands to collect scraps of thread, bone, splinters, and the odd stone. You praise them for their work, and they beam. Even when praise is thin, it matters. Your wife takes the blankets outside one at a time and beats them clean with a stick. Dust clouds rise into the morning sun like smoke, and your croft for once smells less like sweat and more like the outdoors. The pig is curious about the activity. It snuffles at the doorway, then grunts and returns to its corner. It too knows the rhythms of your life. Later, you reorganize the food stores. The sacks are lighter than they were a month ago. One has a mouse hole chewed through the bottom. You empty the grain into another sack, hang it from a rafter, and set a stone over the hole. You'll check it again tomorrow. Your wife rewraps the bundles of herbs near the fire. She picks through the dried sprigs with a practiced eye, discarding the ones that have gone to dust. She pauses at a few feverfew nettle sage and sets them aside. Enough for one more strong tonic if needed. You both glance at the sick child, who now sleeps soundly under a sunlit blanket. The color is returning to their cheeks. Midday comes with a quiet meal, bread softened in warm milk, the last of the onion broth, and a cup of weak ale. The children eat slowly, watching the birds outside peck at the frozen ground. You spot a robin. Your wife says that's a good sign. You don't disagree. Afterward, the children help patch the roof from the inside. You pass them scraps of cloth and help them wedge them into the gaps between the rafters where the wind has found new paths. You remind them that work done together always goes faster. They nod. They've learned this truth early. In the afternoon, you turn your attention to the tools. You oil the hinges of the door, sharpen the blade of your hoe, and check the trapline rope for frays. Everything is just barely good enough, but that's all it needs to be. Your wife scrubs the hearthstone with ash and a cloth. The children stack wood. The croft begins to feel a little less like a cage and a little more like something cared for. Osric passes by in the late afternoon. He stops at the doorway, glancing around. "Looks good," he says, as if surprised. Then he asks if you'll help him repair his chimney stone on Thursday. You say yes. You always say yes. As evening falls, you bring in the blankets again. They smell of wind and sunlight and a little like straw. You pile them near the fire, letting them soak in the heat before bedding down again. Supper is quiet. Bread again, a handful of dried peas boiled with some thyme. You ration carefully, setting aside a portion for tomorrow without even thinking. It's instinct now. Afterwards, your wife sings a different song, one you haven't heard since last winter. The children don't know the words, but they sway along. One of them claps softly in time. You smile and join her on the last line. You settle in near the fire. The tools are in their place. The children are clean and fed. The floor is swept. The roof patched. The grain hung safe from mice. You've done everything a person can do in a day. You lie down. The firelight flickers across the walls. The roof creaks above you, the wood shifting slightly in the night air. And you close your eyes to the rare feeling that something, however briefly, is in order. Let's keep going. It's still dark when you wake, but this time not because of the hour, because of the clouds. The air is heavier today, thick with a dampness that sticks to the walls, to your skin, to your breath. You can't see the rain yet, but it's there. You can smell it, feel it in your joints. The roof above you ticks and groans with the change in air like it too is bracing. You stoke the fire before anyone else rises. The coals are reluctant this morning, the kind of reluctant that speaks of bad weather. You coax the flames, patiently feeding them bark and straw and small offerings, whispering to them like they're shy animals. Eventually, they flicker to life, dim, sullen, but alive. The first drops of rain start not long after. Not in a storm, not in sheets. Just a slow, steady patter, like the sound of someone drumming fingers on a wooden table. It taps on the thatch, trickles through the cracks in the wall, finds its way beneath the door and across the floor in thin, shining trails. Today will be a leaking day. There are always days like this in late winter. Days where no matter what you do, the croft feels soggy, where your skin feels wet even before you've touched water, where the smell of damp rot creeps in at the corners. You and your wife begin the ritual without speaking. She moves to gather dry cloths. You grab the wooden bowl and place it under the drip near the window. The children help dragging baskets and jars to the high shelves. You show them how to tilt the lid just so to keep the water from pooling. The pig, annoyed, snorts and turns in its corner. Even it seems irritated by the weather. Outside, the world is gray. The path to the village center is a river of mud. The garden is a soup of sludge. Nothing can be done with the fields. No gathering, no wood chopping. Everything halts on a day like this. It's as if the land itself has said no more today. But that doesn't mean there's rest. You take advantage of the time to mend things. The net for trapping birds frayed from use is untangled, retied. The hem of your cloak is sewn where it's begun to unravel. You patch a hole in the wall near the floor where mice have been nibbling. The children bring you small stones, and you wedge them into the gap, sealing it with mud and straw. Your wife boils water, precious now with the wood so damp. She steeps mint leaves in it and adds a pinch of dried apple peel. The steam fills the croft with a faintly sweet scent, hiding the smell of mold and wet cloth. The sick child drinks a small cup. They're stronger now, sitting up longer, speaking more. It's a small miracle, the kind you don't speak aloud for fear of scaring it off. At midday, the rain is still falling. The roof holds mostly. A few new drips. You collect the water where you can. Rainwater is cleaner than stream water this time of year. You use it to wash the children's hands and faces, to rinse the cooking pot, to soak a crust of bread until it's soft enough to chew. Later, the neighbor's boy stops by, soaked to the bone, shivering. He's looking for salt. His family's stores have gone damp, and they've nothing left to preserve what's remaining of their pork. You give him half of yours without hesitation. His hands shake as he tucks it into a scrap of cloth. You offer him a place by the fire, a hot drink. He refuses politely, eyes darting toward the path, as if he fears staying too long might be punished by the rain itself. As evening falls, the croft feels darker than usual. Even with the fire burning well, the light doesn't bounce the same way. It's swallowed by the damp. The children play quietly, with a string puzzle you made them, twisting loops around fingers, trying to form patterns. One gets it right, and the others applaud with soft, sleepy delight. Your wife cooks a barley mash with a few turnip slices. The mash clings to the wooden spoons like glue. No one complains. Hunger does not allow for complaints. You eat in silence, the sounds of rain filling the space between bites. Afterward, you check the roof again. Run your fingers along the beams. Press your ear to the wood. No new leaks for now. You let out a breath you didn't know you were holding. Before bed, you dry the children's feet one by one, wrapping them in the last dry cloth. You do the same for your wife, then yourself. You lay the damp garments near the fire in a careful pile, hoping they'll dry by morning, hoping there's still enough wood for one more blaze tomorrow. You lie down in the dark. The rain still falls, and though the fire is steady and the roof is holding you sleep lightly, half dreaming of storms and rotting thatch of water rising through the floor. But you're still dry, for now. And in this world, for now, is a victory. Let's keep going. By morning, the rain has stopped, but the world it leaves behind is quieter, heavier. The croft smells of steam and earth, damp wool, wet straw, that sour scent of moisture that settles in when things don't have the chance to dry. You rise early as always, though your limbs protest. The floor is cold and slick beneath your feet, and when you step outside to empty the night's waste, the mud nearly takes your boot with it. The sky is thick with gray clouds, still bloated and undecided. You know better than to call it cleared. Still, there is work to do. Today is your turn on road duty. A path just beyond the village, nothing more than a trail of churned earth, really has flooded again, and the Reeves' orders have come down. Dig trenches, redirect the water. Lay stones if you can find them. It's a labor tax, like the grain, like the firewood, like everything. You eat quickly, bread and weak ale, and kiss your wife on the forehead before leaving. Her hand lingers on your arm for a moment longer than usual. She doesn't need to say it. Don't overdo it. Come back whole. The walk to the flooded path is a squelching, filthy slog. Mud seeps into your boots and holds fast. At the low bend in the road, two others are already there, Garth and old Merrick. Garth nods as you approach, already swinging a shovel. Merrick just grunts. You pick up the only available tool, a broken-handled spade. Its edge is dull, its grip slick from use, but it digs. That's all that matters. Together, the three of you begin cutting a narrow trench alongside the path, creating a channel to pull the water toward the field ditch. The soil is heavy, wet, reluctant. Every scoop sticks. Every movement pulls at your spine. You work like this for hours, backs bent, boots sunk, faces grimy. You don't speak unless it's necessary. A nod here, a warning there. No time or breath to waste. When noon approaches, Garth pulls a small cloth from his coat. Inside a boiled egg and a lump of cheese. He breaks them in three without a word. You take your share, hands shaking, and eat with your eyes closed. It tastes like rest. The water begins to move as the trench deepens. Slow at first, then with more confidence. A thin stream finds its way toward the ditch, trickling over the stones you placed. The mud groans as it shifts. A puddle drains. You all exhale. Small victories, always small. You return home sore, soaked, and silent. Your wife greets you with a bowl of broth and a warm cloth. The fire has been stoked high, and the croft feels like a haven despite the smell of wet wood. The children are gathered near the hearth, sorting dry beans into piles for tomorrow's meal. Even the pig seems content buried in hay. The sick child has improved. They're humming now quietly while tracing shapes in the ash with a stick. Their skin still glistens with sweat, but their smile is real. You reach out, brush a damp curl from their forehead, and something inside you loosens. In the evening, you sit near the hearth and work on binding the old shovel handle. You shave a branch down, wrap it in leather scraps, and wedge it into the head. It's not perfect, but it'll hold for a few more days, maybe a week. Your wife is spinning thread from old wool. Her fingers move quickly, pulling, twisting, winding. The rhythm is calming. The fire cracks, the pot bubbles. The children laugh softly over a joke only they understand. These are the moments that feel full. Not joyful, not safe, but full. You remember a story your mother once told about a lord who lived in a stone house with 50 windows. He had hot meals every night, 3 servants to dress him, and silk that never wore through. She said he was a fool. He never knew the weight of his own life. You think about that now, watching your wife thread wool through her fingers like gold. As the night deepens, you open the shutter for a moment and glance outside. The sky is trying to clear. A few stars blink through. The path glistens with leftover rain, but it's no longer swallowing the village. The trench held. You bank the fire, carefully stacking the wood just right, brushing the coals toward the center. The sick child has already fallen asleep, curled under 2 blankets. The others follow soon after. When you lie down, your muscles sigh. You stretch your legs and feel the ache like a song playing in your bones. You close your eyes. You dug the road today. You came back whole. You'll sleep well tonight. Let's keep going. The morning begins with wind. Not the howling kind that screams down the chimney and rattles the shutters, but something more insidious, steady, sharp, slipping through every gap and seam, threading itself into the fibers of your clothes and settling into your bones. It carries the smell of iron and earth and something else change. You rise slowly, tugging your cloak tighter, and step outside into a world swept clean of birdsong. The sky above is a curtain of steel, unmoving. The trees do not bend, but they creak old tired sounds, like the forest itself is remembering every winter it has endured. Your wife has already risen, of course. She stands at the fire, stirring something thick and brown in the pot. You smell barley, maybe a bit of dried onion. Comfort food, if it could be called that. Her face is pale in the early light, the lines around her mouth deeper than they were last season. You kiss her cheek without speaking and sit beside the hearth. Today is tax day. You've known it was coming. The Reeve gave notice last week, and your household isn't exempt. No one is. Not the family with 7 children. Not the widow in the corner croft. Not even the priest, though you suspect his contributions come back tenfold in the form of grain or labor from the rest of you. You spend the morning preparing what little you have. 2 sacks of barley, one tighter than it should be, and a wedge of smoked pork that's thin enough to see through. Your wife wraps the offerings in a cloth and ties it with twine, tucking a small sprig of mint in for scent. It's not about charity, it's about dignity. Even when you give what you can't afford to lose, you present it well. The walk to the granary is quiet. You're not alone. Other villagers trudge the same path, eyes low, shoulders hunched. No one speaks. The line outside the granary is long and slow-moving. You see Osric ahead of you holding a bundle of eggs. Behind you, Merrick leans on a cane, balancing a cloth-wrapped jar of preserved goose fat. When it's your turn, the steward inspects your goods with the care of someone who has never known hunger. He lifts the pork frowns, pokes the barley as if testing for lies. He says nothing, just scribbles a mark on a scrap of parchment and gestures for the next in line. You take back the empty cloth and walk home with hands that feel strangely lighter and heavier at the same time. At the croft, your wife has kept the fire going. The children have swept the floor and are now stringing bits of dried bean pods onto a thread, pretending they're beads. The sick child, still improving, laughs softly when one pod splits and flings a bean across the room. Your wife hands you a bowl of barley broth. Thin, not much left now. You sip slowly, grateful for warmth even if it tastes of sacrifice. Afterward, you spend the afternoon repairing the chicken coop. One of the rails has snapped where the frost warped the wood. You pull it apart gently, remove the rot, and cut a new post from the log pile. Your axe blade is dull, but you know the grain of the wood well enough to work around it. The children help gather nails from the jar and pass you the hammer. Your wife watches from the doorway, sewing a new lining into her oldest shawl. Later, Osric stops by with a smile and a quiet whisper. He's managed to set a trap near the church wall, and it caught a hare. He invites you to share a meal tomorrow. You nod, surprised. That's rare. Food enough to invite someone. He must be doing slightly better. Or maybe he just remembers what it's like to feel hollow. You go inside and prepare supper barley cakes cooked on the stone by the fire. You mix the last of the flour with water, and salt shape them with your hands, and flip them carefully. The children eat quickly, licking their fingers, the quiet joy of texture and taste in their eyes. That night, your wife sits beside you as you carve new hooks for hanging the tools. She leans her head on your shoulder and murmurs a prayer, not to be rich, not to be free, just to have enough for tomorrow. You say amen. The children sleep quickly, the sick child too. Their color is almost back now. You watch their chest rise and fall, listen to the fire, let your body soften against the wall. Tomorrow you'll return to the fields. The day after, maybe the forest, to set traps, to gather sticks, to check the snares. The tax is paid. For now. The weight hasn't lifted, but it's shifted. Slightly. Enough that your breath no longer feels like debt. Outside, the wind has calmed. The stars, when you check the sky, are back. Let's keep going. The morning begins with a hush. Not silence exactly. There's always some sound in the village, but a kind of stillness that feels intentional. Even the roosters seem to crow more softly, and the pigs snuffle with less urgency. You rise slowly, noticing that the air has shifted again. Not warmer. Not yet. But different. Like the breath before a question is asked. Today is market day. It's not every week that you can go. Not every household has anything to offer, and even fewer have anything to trade. But your wife has worked hard the past few days, spinning what remained of last year's wool into a decent-length thread. It's enough to barter for something, maybe dried apples, maybe a pinch of salt. You dress carefully, layering the tunic you've patched 3 times over your shirt, tucking the hem into your worn belt. You wrap the wool in cloth and place it in a pouch. It's not heavy, but it feels important. You walk with your wife along the path into the heart of the village. The children stay behind to tend the fire and sweep the floor. The eldest is old enough now to manage that. It's strange how quickly that happens, how suddenly their shoulders begin to look like yours. The market stalls are simple tables, carts, crates flipped upside down. Most villagers lay their goods on cloth right on the ground. You nod to the baker who's selling yesterday's loaves for half a handful of dried peas. A cooper has a few barrel staves lashed together with green twine. A fisherman from the next hamlet over holds up a string of dried eels like a prize. The air is thick with the scent of smoke-cured meat and livestock. There's a kind of rhythm to it, the haggling, the glances, the subtle nods of agreement. No one's getting rich here. But sometimes someone walks away with something they didn't mishfo the day before. You and your wife walk slowly, scanning the cloths, the baskets. At one stall, you find something unexpected, honey. Not much. Just a thumb-sized jar. Amber and golden in the winter light. You can't remember the last time you tasted anything sweet. You ask the price. The woman running the stall, an older lady with sharp eyes and a kind face, looks at your thread. She runs it between her fingers, feeling the consistency, checking for strength. She doesn't speak for a moment, then nods. 1 jar. She throws in a pinch of dried rosehip besides. You thank her, then you thank her again. The words feel clumsy in your mouth. Gratitude isn't something you've practiced aloud much lately, but she nods with understanding. You pass by Osric's wife, who has brought a single hen in a crate. She doesn't say much, but her eyes tell you everything. Things are tight at their croft, too. You wish you had something extra to give her. You don't. Not today. Back at home, the children gather around the tiny jar of honey like it's treasure. You use a sliver of flatbread to scoop the first taste and let each child have a lick. Their faces transform, eyes wide, brows lifting, mouths slowly curling into something close to wonder. Your wife laughs. It's not a big laugh, not a deep one, but it's real, and it fills the room more than fire ever could. Later in the day, you repair the garden fence. One of the slats snapped in the last frost. You use wood saved from the roof repair, measured and cut to size. You set it in place with a stone and wedge it down tight with rope. The soil below is still frozen, but your fingers itch to dig, to plant, to do something that feels like spring. The children help with small chores, tying bundles of kindling, rolling dried herbs into cloth tubes, brushing dirt from the pigs' hooves. You watch them move with more certainty than before. They know their place in this life now, and that knowledge is something you've worked hard to give them. That evening, your wife prepares a stew using the rosehip you bartered for. The scent fills the croft. It's a simple thing, tart and warm. She saves the last spoonful for the sick child, who now sits beside the hearth, combing knots out of their hair and humming tunelessly. After supper, you sit with your carving knife and begin to shape a new toy, something for the youngest. A tiny horse, just a block of wood now, but the legs are taking form. You remember the one your father carved you. You can still feel the smoothness of its back in your palm years later. Your wife mends the edge of your cloak, and the children lie against each other like a pile of tired pups, watching the fire flicker against the thatch. One begins to snore. Another sighs in their sleep. You lay the toy aside, only half finished, and smile. Tomorrow, if the weather holds, you'll check the traps again. Maybe even walk to the edge of the woods. There's talk of rabbits near the abbey walls. You bank the fire, draw the blankets close, and lie beside your wife. Her hand finds yours beneath the cloth. Your bones still ache, but your stomach is full. The roof holds. The children are quiet. And there's a smear of honey on your finger that you haven't yet wiped away. You smile in the dark. Let's keep going. It's the cold again that wakes you, but not the bitter, biting kind. It's the kind that whispers instead of screams. The kind that seeps in slowly, reminding you that spring might be on the calendar, but the ground still remembers winter. You sit up slowly, letting the stiffness in your shoulders ease before standing. Beside you, your wife stirs, but doesn't wake. The children are wrapped in a bundle of limbs and blankets. The sick one now indistinguishable from the rest, a good sign. You pause a moment, watching the way their chests rise and fall, the slow rhythm of sleep. Then you move. There's something sacred about the quiet before dawn. Not holy in the church sense, but in the way it feels earned. You move through the croft, with care feeding the fire, checking the coals, laying out the day's tools. It's your routine now, your liturgy of survival. Today you'll walk to the edge of the forest. You've put it off, not out of fear, but because it's a commitment. A half-day's journey there and back. But the snares need checking, and your family needs meat. Dried peas and turnips can only carry you so far. The children's eyes have begun to linger on empty bowls a little too long. You pack what little you need, twine your knife, a worn cloth in case you catch anything worth wrapping, and kiss your wife on the forehead. She doesn't speak, just nods. You say you'll be back by dark. The walk is long and uneventful. That in itself is a mercy. The path is muddy but passable, and the wind is gentle. Birds call in the canopy above, and somewhere in the distance a stream bubbles like laughter. When you reach the first snare, your heart skips, empty. So is the second. The third holds a rabbit, small, thin, but alive. You whisper thanks, end its life cleanly, and place it in your cloth. By the time you've finished checking them all, you've caught 2. Enough for stew. Enough to say yes when the children ask if there's anything better than bread tonight. On the walk home, you pass the abbey walls. The monks are outside tilling the frozen garden beds. Their hands are soft compared to yours, their robes cleaner, but the ache in their shoulders looks familiar. You nod in greeting. One nods back. Another offers you a crust of bread, thick brown, studded with herbs. You accept it like treasure. At home, your return is met with small cheers. The children crowd around the bundle as if you've returned with gold. Your wife examines the rabbits and immediately begins to prepare the stew. She's already soaked lentils and saved the last turnip peel for flavor. Tonight's meal will be warm, filling, real. As the stew bubbles, you wash your hands and sit outside the croft for a moment, watching the sky. The clouds have pulled back. The air smells like thawing earth. A bird lands near your foot and pecks at the mud unbothered. You let yourself smile. Later, you help your wife skin and clean the rabbits. The children watch, curious but quiet. You explain each step, where to cut, where to pull what not to waste. It's not just a meal. It's a lesson. One they'll carry long after you're gone. Dinner is the best you've had in weeks. Rich by your standards. The pot is scraped clean. Even the pig gets a treat, a scrap of organ meat devoured with relish. Afterward, your wife hums a song while sewing a new lining into one of the children's tunics. You finish the toy horse from before smoothing its legs, carving small notches for reins. You pass it to your youngest. They hold it like it might break. The fire is warm. The croft is dry. The food has settled into your bones, and your hands for once do not tremble. You lie down slowly that night, every limb folding into place like a story finishing its final page. You've done it again. One more day, in a world where you weren't supposed to last a single one. Let's wind down. So now you've made it to the end. Your boots are soaked with mud. Your hands are raw, your back is tight. Your breath smells faintly of wood smoke and barley stew. You've survived freezing winds, fevers, leaking roofs, and long walks home with empty sacks. You've stared down famine, taxes, and death, all without fanfare, without armor, without banners. You've learned to listen to the fire, to ration your beans, to tuck the straw tighter under your ribs. You've learned to love slowly, protect quietly, and carry on endlessly. And it's hard not to realize now that survival here isn't heroic. It's habitual. It's quiet. It's aching. It's incredibly, impossibly ordinary. But you made it. And that's all that was ever asked of you. So as you close your eyes, just imagine that final evening. The fire crackling low. The toy horse resting beside a sleeping child. The stew pot still warm. The stars blinking through the thatch above. You're lying in your blanket pressed close to those you love, and for once you're not thinking about tomorrow. Because for once, tonight is enough. You've made it. Sleep well, weary traveler.